Wait, hold on. Let me.
The most versatile artificial shrimp in the entire country for catching redfish, speckled trout, snook, flounder, snapper, all kinds of fish. Just got better. Hey, everybody. Joe Simons, like diamonds. Got Luke Simons, like diamonds. And yes, the Power Prawn now become our top selling lure, if you can believe it. Even above Slam Shady right now. This thing has been going crazy, and it's because it keeps catching fish and people keep coming back to buy more. Yes, it just got better. It is not available yet, this new version, which is a made in USA version, which we're also excited about, but it'll be here very soon. So we want to give you the details so that when it does hit the store at fishstrong.com, and by the way, you can still go buy the original Power Prawns there. We just got a new batch in from Brazil. So you can still go buy the Power Prawn, the big boy, and the Power Prawn Junior. But we are going to have the Power Prawn USA coming out soon. And we want to tell you how all the improvements. Oh, look at that, Luke. That looks sharp, dude. I haven't even seen that yet.
Yeah, this is the packaging. We finally got that locked and loaded, and it's all coming together. Really nice.
Keep holding that up. That looks really good. Hold that back up. So if you're listening, Luke is holding the new packaging for Power Prawn USA. And if you recall the old Power Prawns, these are the big 4.35 or 4 and 3/4 inches. It was 2 Power Prawns per pack. This is how many? Count those up again.
It's a 5-pack, Joe.
That's a 5-pack. That's huge. So that's one of the many upgrades we made. And so it'll be the same price. You'll now be able to get 5 for the same price you used to be able to get 2. I'm not really good at math, but that's like a discount double check times 2. That's pretty friggin' awesome. That's huge, dude. So let's talk about the prawn. For those who haven't heard the story, or even if you have, let's kind of revisit how this thing came about. And we'll post a link in there. You can go hear the whole interview with Marcos, the Brazilian, who told us first about these really, I would call magical prawns in terms of how they work. So Luke, kind of give the backstory there.
Yeah, so this is the original Power Prawn. These are made in Brazil. It's made out of the TPE material. And yeah, Joe and I went fishing with one of our Inside Club members named Marcos. He's from Brazil, and he's been just absolutely crushing just giant fish down in he's living or fishing in Chokoloski, so down by the Everglades, and to the point where he's literally entering a lot of tournaments and winning, and going against live bait fishermen and consistently putting up some just giant fish. And this is literally all he uses. And so he kept telling us about these shrimp lures, and it got hard to ignore because he kept posting all these giant fish, snook, redfish, trout, cobia. I mean, really permit too, just all sorts of stuff. And so we went fishing with him, and it was just blown away. We were both blown away on how many big snook we hooked that day. It was the most overslot snook I've ever seen hooked in one day on artificial lures.
Yeah, and we're talking like 40-inch snook. I mean, that was the first one I brought up. Remember that first one? I was like, you got to be kidding me. And we were popping it off of wrecks. And Wyatt just posted a video. He's catching monster red snapper and grouper off of wrecks, popping that exact same Power Prawn off the bottom with a heavier jig head. It was nuts.
Yeah, so like near shore reef, so it's like the 20 to kind of the 20-foot range plus or minus. And so okay, like I was obviously very impressed after going up there, but that is a unique fishery, and there's just a lot of big snook down there. So I was just okay, like that is pretty amazing, but will it work elsewhere? And so I grabbed some and brought them up to St. Pete and started fishing. I took them dock fishing, a lot of my normal docks I've been fishing, and they were working extremely well, like to the point where my average catch rate and my average size, most importantly, catch size increased once I started using these lures. And basically the same thing, right? So just bouncing off the bottom and using the right size jig head to get it on the bottom without just totally dragging. They were just absolutely crushing it. And I think it's just because it's realistic. It's realistic and has good darting motion, and it gets right down there in the fish's face, and they just can't help but to eat it. So I've been using it now for about 1.5 years, maybe a little bit longer actually, throughout all seasons. And I just have been more and more impressed with it, to the point where now it's one of my favorite lures. So that's kind of the history of the shrimp. I've never been a big fan of shrimp lures until this one, because most of them come pre-rigged,
Yeah, don't
and you
ever buy
can't
a
really
pre-rigged
control your
shrimp.
depth coverage, which is a big problem. That's
Yep.
that's really the number one reason why a lot of people don't like, or really don't have success with fishing lures, is get the pre-rigged stuff, and that pre-rig will only enable you to cover a certain depth range. And if the fish are down here, or if they're up here, you're out of luck. And so with this, you can rig it on a jig head, you can rig it on a weighted hook. And like here's one of the new ones on a weighted hook. We have a custom weighted hook for it, so
All
it's
right,
super weedless.
Luke, for those listening, explain what that looks like.
Yeah, so this is the new power. This is the Power Prawn U.S.A. is what we're going to call it. Similar shape, right? You can see the similar shape. It's made out of plastisol, so this is going to be much easier to rig, and the better hookup ratio and all that. But as far as rigging, you can, right now it's rigged. This current example that I'm showing is rigged on a weighted hook. This enables to cover really shallow water. You can be weedless, right? Right now it's pretty weedless. And then if I want to go super weedless, where I'm skipping up under mangroves, then I just dig that hook point in just a hair. It's called a skin hook. Just barely dig that hook point in. Now I can skip up under mangroves aggressively and really get down right in the structure where most of the fish are, and get right in their face. All right, that's really the name of the game, is just get as many of these lures as possible right in the fish's face, you're going to catch more fish. And so being able to rig weedless and to cover various depth ranges is just incredibly important. And that's, again, both of those features are most often not possible with those pre-rigged shrimp, which is why, again, why a lot of our members are switching over to these Power Prawns.
Yep. So let's talk about this new Power Prawn, the Power Prawn 2.0, Power Prawn USA. There were, I'm not going to say issues, because it's still one of the most, if not the most versatile lure we've ever used. I mean, to be able to catch fish in 70 feet of water, like consistently, it's nuts. And we've done it multiple times and documented the whole thing, all the way to catching really nice, slot and over slot reds in 2 feet of water. It is incredibly versatile, all because of what Luke said, the ability to rig it with all types of different jig heads and weedless hooks, not like, DOA and some of these that come pre-rigged. Like, I would never, ever recommend anyone that I like to go buy a pre-rigged shrimp. So all that being said, we wanted to fix a couple things. We already talked about, the expense. I mean, it is expensive, let's be honest, to pay $7 for 2 shrimp, even though it's worth it. And they keep flying off our shelves. We can hardly keep up with it, which is another reason we looked at a USA option. The other part is it does have one weak link, and that's that segmented tail. And the first time we fished with Marcos and his wife, they had both. They had some the segmented tail and some without, and they were actually having more luck with the ones without it. And they even told us, like, guys, to be honest with you, like, the segmented tail, it's really to catch the fisherman's eye, not the fish. The fish doesn't care, and actually it has a little bit better darting motion without the segmented tail. But it's funny, and we had to pick one because it was really expensive to do this whole endeavor, and we had to like print off a ton of these Power Prawns to make it work with all the import fees and all the other stuff that happens. And so we had to pick one, and Mark was like, well, to be honest, like, they're very similar in terms of what they're going to catch. He's like, I personally like the ones that aren't segmented, but if you want to grab people's attention, it can't hurt to have the segmented. So that's why we went with segmented. But it also became the weak spot, right? People are like, oh my gosh, I just paid all this money for 2 Power Prawns and a jack, or a ladyfish or a pufferfish, something ended up biting the tail off, and they're like, oh, that just kills you. Because unlike like the Slam Shady 2.0, it's not as good once the tail's gone. We've still caught fish with it, with the nub, if you will, but it's definitely not as good like a paddle tail that basically turns into a jerk shad. And so we now have fixed that problem, and we've made it stronger. I mean, this is not just like plastisol. Luke mentioned plastisol. This is like the strong stuff. It is not going to break. I mean, obviously it will break just like anything, but it's not going to have that same problem, because Luke, if you pull up the segmented one, I mean, it is so thin, and you try to separate it. I mean, there's barely anything holding that in place. It looks cool. It gets the attention of fishermen. But if you look at these things underwater, the non-segmented actually looks better and has performed better. We've been using this one. We've been doing this whole mold thing for like a year now, and we finally have it together. And this thing has been absolutely crushing it without the actual, you can still see slight little segments in there. If you zoom in, you see little lines, but it's not the segmented where you're relying on a fraction of such a thin piece of material to hold that thing together.
Yeah, and what I found from testing, from going back and forth, is that a couple benefits that are noticeable and a very big positive for going the non-segmented tail is, number one, we'll start with just the skipping, right? I do a lot of dock fishing and mangrove fishing, and it skips night and day better as the full tail, because basically every one of these little notches on there, that's going to catch water. And it's lighter. This TP material is really light, whereas this is a denser material, and there's not as many snags. So this lure skips so much better. Again, night and day difference.
So you can cast it farther,
yep,
and skip it a whole lot better.
Right, but then also, just as importantly, is the motion in the water. It has better darting motion, so there's less water drag. Again, another reason why a lot of shrimp lures just underperform this type is that they have all those legs and all that fancy stuff. Even like some have antenna sticking way out. That's just a lot of water drag. It's wind drag for casting, and it's water drag for the actual cruising. As basically, when a shrimp, we have a lot of people, hey, like, why do you rig it in the front? Like when a shrimp darts, it darts backwards. Yes, that's true, but it happens so fast. What the fish, almost every strike happens when the lure, after the dart, when the lure is just gliding back down. And it has a much better glide with this full tail compared to this segmented tail, right? This slows it down, and it kind of doesn't have as true of a motion. So when you twitch this, the twitch happens really fast. The tail still is flexible enough to give a little kick, but the actual glide is better, as from what I found, for getting the strikes, right? Most of the strikes happen after the twitch, and this lure is just gliding back down, and that's when they hammer it. So has an excellent glide, and as I said before, just the ability to cast and skip better is in my opinion the two biggest reasons why I now gravitate towards this current model versus the old one.
And it's stronger just because it does not have that segmentation. But it's worth repeating what you said there, because this is really the key to fishing in general. When we were into bass fishing, every Bass Pro, Bill Dance, the same thing. When does the strike happen? On the drop, right? I mean, it's not 100%, but the vast majority, it might be 90% of the time, these strikes are happening on the drop. This thing has, with this new version, it has the best glide, and we're going to have a whole lot of underwater footage for you guys to see, but that's when it's happening. It's after the pop, and it looks like a real shrimp kind of just moving slowly in the water. And that's when these fish are absolutely crushing it. And it still has a pretty wide tail. If you show that tail, Luke, I mean, it's really cool to see how this thing just glides perfectly down. And I still don't think you're going to find a shrimp better than this. I mean, like I said, we made all the enhancements that we wanted to, and this is our mold. I mean, we spent, what was it, $15,000 or something just to get the mold. And that was really cool. Yeah. Maybe you can share some of that. That's all these renditions we kept getting, and then we'd fish it for a while, for a month, and we'd go back and say, hey, let's make a couple more little tweaks here to get this thing absolutely perfect.
Yeah, so this is the final, basically this is our first time actually going through and creating our own mold. So it was a lot of learning involved. And basically what we do is we design it, and then they'll send a mold, and it'll basically enable us to pour our own. So I've learned how to pour my own. I got all the injector, single injector. It basically goes right in the top there. You get this plastisol super hot, put in the coloring, put in the glitter, all that fun stuff. We go it in there, let it sit for a minute or two, and then you have yourself a lure. And so it's really fun to do, actually. This was the final of the aluminum cavities, and you can just see it in there, right? This is like every detail is accounted for. This is the bottom. It has the little belly segment for just increasing the hookup ratios. And then on the top, you can have a little salt strong up there in the very top of the shrimp, which is really cool.
And that's going to actually show you where to hook it too, right? Where to have your yep.
Yeah, so we use this. So basically, we also designed these weighted hooks for it too, which is a really this is a custom hook. As you can see, this is a lot of plastic. This is the bigger size shrimp. We are going to do a smaller one later on, but for the bigger one, this is for getting the big fish, right? This was our top seller, right? For the Brazilian one was the big one. And you can see the shape of this is something that we fixed. So the shape of this head on the Brazilian one is aimed upwards, so that when you rig on a weighted hook, it's naturally kind of popping up in an unnatural way. It kind of pops up and then it has to shimmy back down and go. Whereas this one is more of a torpedo head. When you pop it, it goes up, but it goes in a straighter line, so that when it starts gliding, it's a more natural glide. So, and if the tail does, come off, it actually still looks good in the water, which is a big thing. Like this one is going to last. Again, even if you see a lot of small bait fish around or small shrimp, you can literally tear off the tail just like you can with the jerk shads that we have, or even Slam Shade 2.0. You can quickly go down to a smaller silhouette and still catch fish. So that was a big fix that we had. And these hooks are going to, obviously we're going to have these for sale as well as soon as we get these Power Prawns live.
Oh yeah, it's going to be good. Yeah. So if you love the original Power Prawn, and we know a ton of you do because it's become our #1 seller, you're absolutely going to love this. And you're going to get 5 for the same price you were getting 2. And quite honestly, they probably should last longer. I mean, they should be stronger. To Luke's point, with this one, even if you do get the tail bitten off, unlike the other one, this thing, you actually still can fish it, and you can actually still catch a lot of big fish. And we've been doing this, like I said, for, I mean, it was all of last year, this whole process. And if you're wondering, man, how are you going to keep up if you only have that one little mold? That's not the mold. That's the final approval. We know why it costs so much money is we're getting the big boy, the one that what is it, 32 of those in a row, or 40 or something.
Yeah, this one is, I believe it's 36.
36.
Yeah, so it's the big mold. It goes into the big injection machines, and it'll do 36 at a time, and that's how we get the price down, right? Yeah. It's super expensive, but for customers, it's the way to go, because it's not doing one at a time, which takes forever. So I just have those just to get these first batches coming out, just to make sure that the process works. I've been testing out the rigging, right? That was how we made sure that this hook in particular was the best option. I've tried an absolute ton of them. The fact that this has a little bit wider gap and the weight placement is exactly where it's supposed to be to have a nice glide. This is deadly for tailing redfish up in the shallows, for going through seagrass and hitting up potholes. So for wintertime right now, which is when we're filming this has really been just awesome for fishing potholes. Like at low tide, when those fish have to push out, and nice realistic looking lure, good action, and the fact that it's weedless, this is excellent.
Yeah, and with that, you can also put, I mean, we were using 1 ounce jig heads, and still performs excellent. And you're sinking that thing, I mean, down, pretty deep. I mean, 30, 40, 60 feet in a couple cases. And same deal, popping that sucker off the bottom. It is so crazy how well it works. We were fishing with old Hollywood there in Carabao, going after big red snapper and big grouper. And he's like, man, I know the Power Prawn works, but he's like, I don't think it's going to work here in this deep of water with these fish. He's like, you need live bait and cut bait. And so we tried both. And that first day, the Power Prawn caught more fish than cut bait, / live bait. That's all we were using on the one side, and the other side we used Power Prawn, and the Power Prawn won. It absolutely crazy. The next day it was pretty close. But like, it was nuts, man, to see how well that thing works. So we're so pumped to have this. And also another issue, going international, just this whole supply chain thing, it has been absolutely chaotic. Stuff gets stuck in customs for weeks, sometimes longer. And this enables us to have something made in USA, and it's creating more jobs. We just hired someone today, literally, and about an hour ago, we gave them their offer just to help pack these things. Because with these bigger machines that we're using, and having cavities of 36 at a time, it's like every couple minutes they're doing a new one. And so they run those machines all day long. We could do 10,000 a day. I mean, we can really print off a lot of these things. And so how cool is that we get to help, create jobs as well right here in the state of Florida. And I like that part of it as well. And really, honestly, just having the ability to get stuff quicker is super nice, not having to go through customs and all the stuff that just absolutely takes forever. So that way, because I know you guys get frustrated when you go to fishstrong.com and you see stuff's out of stock. Our goal is to make sure we're never out of stock on that. There's nothing worse for us as small business owners to be fielding emails from people mad that we're out of stuff. I hope you can put yourself in our shoes and say, yeah, they probably would prefer to have stuff in stock and to be selling it instead of getting angry emails. So that will enable us to be able to make sure we always give you guys what you want. And I know another question that's going to come up is, well, hey, what about the original Power Prawn? Can I still buy those? Absolutely. Like I said, we have them right now. I would go buy them right now because it is taking a long time, and we will run out again of those before we get the next batch in. So get those while you can. The Power Prawn and the Power Prawn Junior is at fishstrong.com. And of course, Insider members save 20% off on that. So I would stock up on those if you love them. And then as soon as we get the first batch of the Power Prawn U.S.A, we are going to send it to insiders only. So one more reason to be an insider member. Only insider members are going to get the shot at that very first batch, and you're going to love it. I mean, this is something that, like you said, we've put a lot of time into, and this has been a year plus in the making to really perfect this thing. And you've probably seen a lot of videos. I mean, that one, there's been a couple, but I remember that one that we were doubling up on this redfish. I mean, every time Luke's like, oh yeah, this is a little prototype. Anytime you hear him say it's a prototype shrimp, that was just another version that we continue to test out until it got perfect. And I'll also say, don't judge the shrimp by the cover, right? I mean, you kind of touched on it. So many people see these super realistic shrimp with all kinds of stuff coming out, and they do look real, but that's truly to fool the fishermen. I mean, the fish don't care. And we've done side-by-side comparisons against all of them, including the voodoo shrimps and the gulp shrimps and the DOA shrimps. And this thing is outperforming every one of them. And once again, I love to see someone disprove that, but we've tested it over and over again. And this is the best shrimp lure out there. And as Luke said, not just for catching some fish, I mean, catching big fish as well. I don't know what it is. And I don't know if it's the combination of us, because that was also around the same time, Luke, you started using a lot more Dr. Juice on top of the shrimp, which has got some shrimp extract stuff in it. But man, it has been like, we caught some monster fish off that Power Prawn.
Yeah, and a benefit of this new one is for the rigging, right? A big reason why this is just, it's such a great lure. It's in my opinion, again, in our opinion, I should say, the best shrimp lure, is that it can be used in pretty much any depth, anywhere from 6 inches of water to 60 plus feet of water. And it's all about the customization of rigging, and the fact that this newer version, the USA version, is out of plastisol. We can actually now use pretty much any type of jig head. So this is like a redfish eye jig head, for example. So a lot of jig heads you already have will work great with it. It's easy. It's super easy to rig. This is a 1/4 ounce, right? So now you can go to a 1/2 ounce for deeper water. You can go to 1/8 ounce for shallower. Even going weedless, right? We can now use the traditional weedless type jig heads for it as well. And I'm also working on a custom style for these shrimp lures too. But there's just a lot more options available. And obviously, for anybody who does buy these, we're going to have a cheat sheet for the rigging type, hook size, jig head size, for whichever depth of water that you're targeting, and if you need to be weedless or not weedless.
Yep. And like, you couldn't use that weedless jig head on the original Power Prawn, right? Or it was really, really tough too.
You can. It's just really tough to rig. Like it requires a lot of force. This material, right? Although it is lightweight, it is super strong. This is the TPE material. It's a much more expensive, but yeah, it's really hard to rig on jig heads that have, I don't have one on me, but jig heads that have the little spikes, the hook keepers. Really hard to get this plastic over it. So the jig heads for these are more selective. We really had to customize some jig heads that have no hook keeper at all. This material is very tacky. So as soon as you do rig it on a hook, just the friction of this tacky material on the hook surface is enough to keep it in place. Whereas this newer material, right, the plastisol, this does do better with the hook keepers, which almost all jig heads have. So now, as far as the rigging part, it's way more versatile, and the fact that it's an easier rig is a good bonus as well. So I know a lot of customers who tried this. A lot of the feedback, hey, it's really hard to rig. Can you please make it easier? The only easier way to do it is to go to a better, a more user friendly material, which is what plastisol is.
Yep. And there are different versions of plastisol, like the Slam Shady 2.0. That's kind of a softer one, right? I mean,
It's medium.
yeah, but meaning it's softer compared to what we're using on this. This is definitely a little bit harder. It's tougher. You're going to be able to rig it and then take a jig head off and re-rig it with something else. I mean, it's meant to last. I mean, this should last you twice as long. I'm talking about the whole pack, if not a whole lot more. And once again, you're gonna get 5 of them, so it's more than double what you were getting. And it should be more versatile because you can lose the tail. You're going to be able to skip it into places that you definitely could not skip the original Power Prawn. I always had so much trouble trying to skip that thing. It was just it was not pretty. And because it's a little bit more dense, you're going to be able to cast it a little bit further. And it definitely, that glide, I mean, that drop, if you will, that's when all the magic happens. And that's what we really spent a lot of time, perfecting, is making sure that it looked just absolutely perfect for a fish, not for a fisherman underwater. And we will show you some really cool underwater footage when we come out with it. It's probably going to be, I'm going to say first week of March, just be realistic, because I know people are probably wondering. It'll probably be first week of March before we have it, enough. We've got it, like Luke's holding up that one sample. We've got some coming in here slowly, but and some of our fishing coaches obviously have the prototypes, but I'm guessing it'll be that first or second. Let's just say sometime in March, just so we don't set bad expectations. You just never know. With a lot of it's just the packaging now. Since the mold was the toughest thing. That took a year. Now it's just getting all the packaging and these clamshells to make sure they're perfect. That's another thing we had to do. Luke, if you pull that back up, this is not like a normal lures where you can just throw them into a bag. We want to make sure these are perfect, right? You don't want the tail being bent, even though you can take a blow dryer and bend some of these things back, as Luke showed in that video recently. We want these things to be perfect. So all this stuff costs a whole lot more money. I mean, if you guys have ever done packaging or had a company that has had to invest in packaging, it costs a lot, but we want to do this right. I mean, this is, like Luke said, our first one. That it's ours. I mean, it's just going to be trademarked. I mean, it is our deal, and no one else is going to have a mold like this. So this is 100% proprietary to Salt Strong.
Yeah, so it's going to come in a clamshell, right? And the clamshell is going to be in a baggie, just to make sure that they're all perfectly shaped. So an issue with some plastics is that when they're in, obviously when they come out of the machine or of the mold itself, they're going to be perfect, right? So when they're in here, right, it's guaranteed perfect. This is not moving and not reshaping. But sometimes in transit, if somebody just throws a bunch of soft plastics into a baggie and then ships it out, if that shipment is laid out in the sun, if it gets hot, and then any of these lures are bent in any way, sometimes they overlap one another. And if they heat up and then cool down in that shape, now they're going to be reshaped into a bad mold. And so we just want to make sure that never happens. So we went the extra level and got this really nice, this is like 0.4 millimeters, I believe. It's a pretty thick clamshell, just to make sure that these puppies are always in the right form. And somehow if they get out of form, if you keep it on a lure, so this is one that you can keep on a hook or lure in between trips. But if you keep it on a lure and somehow it gets reshaped or whatever, where it's out of whack, you can just put it right back in here, let it sit for like a day, or put it out in the sun for 30 minutes, pull it out, let it cool down, and it'll be reshaped in the perfect shape. So this is a game changer for having on hand to make sure that your lures are always in the right shape.
Yep. Speaking of that, the other thing that we'll do, just as a little teaser, it might be summertime by time this happens, by the time we catch up, but is to sell like 50 packs. And that's been real popular with Slam Shady, is to get, the 100 packs. So we'll probably do like a 50 pack to help you guys save a lot of money. And it will come in just one big bag. We obviously don't have a clamshell that holds 50, but all you have to do is take 5 at a time, put them in your clamshell. We'll just obviously give you a free clamshell with every purchase. And that way you could put, if you already had another one, just put 10 in there, put them out in the sun if you had to. They should be okay. But if you ever had that one was bent, put them in that clamshell, put them out in the sun for a little bit, and boo bam sham, you're in business with a perfectly aligned Power Prawn.
Oh, yep. Yeah, it's gonna be fun. I've had an absolute blast testing them out. They've been, and just like the other ones, they've been working in the super shallow water, even sight fishing. I've been going after tail and reds. It's been great. blind cast, or I should say smart casting the flats, targeting potholes has been great. Skipping up under mangroves has been great. Skipping under docks has been great. Again, particularly the fact that it skips better than any other shrimp that I've used. And then even going with the heavier jig heads, I've been fishing bridges at night, just bouncing on the bottom. It's basically been a good replacement of a bucktail. Pretty much anywhere bucktails work, this works. And I think it works better, right? Because these fish, right, the bucktail basically mimics the same motion in the water, but once a fish gets close, which one looks more realistic, right?
I take the shrimp. Well,
clearly the shrimp does. And that's why I think it's been so good as far as just increasing the average size of my catch, because it just looks realistic. And those bigger, smarter fish, when they get interested with the motion, right, the kind of the either single bump fall or double bump, that works great for both bucktails and shrimp. When they get close, right, when they start investigating a little bit closer, the more realistic one is going to get the most strikes. And so I've been just really blown away with how effective it has been, to the point where now I rarely ever throw bucktails anymore.
Why would you, when you got something that looks like a shrimp? Everything eats a shrimp, and it's a big shrimp. Big fish eat big shrimp.
And it's less expensive per lure, right? Next, if you're fishing, next to hard structure, and when the odds of getting snagged, even when rigged weedless, is kind of high, it's less painful when you lose a less expensive combo.
Yeah, the price of bucktails skyrocketed the past year or two. No, you remember it used to be they were pretty cheap, and now it's like, holy smokes. I mean, some of these $5-8 for a bucktail is like, whoa, nuts. So anyhow, speaking of buying lures, go to fishstrong.com right now. I would definitely load up on the Power Prawns if you like those, and you should have both. I mean, we're still gonna have both. You'll probably primarily see us using the Power Prawn U.S.A, this newer version, just for all the reasons that we've talked about. It is more versatile. It's a little bit stronger. It's definitely going to cast better, skip a whole lot better, and you can use it as even a little jerk shad if you do lose the tail. It actually is surprisingly effective like that. So, and of course, you can rig it with so many different options. So super pumped for you guys to see that. Insider members, you will definitely be getting an email from us as soon as we get them in, and you will be the only ones who have the option to get it. And it will be, the same deal, probably 20% off there, maybe even 30. We might do a special promo to kick it off. And man, if you guys have any questions, let us know. Go to saltwater.com in the fishing tips section. We'll put this in a blog format, and you might already be there and already. And at the bottom, you'll see a place to leave a comment. And we'd love to answer any questions that we might have missed on this. And of course, if you're not a member, join. What are you waiting for? This is just one of, I don't know, I think it's like 26,232 different reasons to join the Insider Club. So man, I mean, so cool. And on top of that, inside the community now, man, I mean, I love reading these reports, and so many reports now with the Power Prawn, and we're getting ideas from people saying, man, I didn't even know, like, I didn't even think about using the Power Prawn with that type of a rig in that situation. So really cool, the stuff we're learning there in the private community.
Yep. Yeah. I get in there every day, and it's a ton of fun just seeing reports and learning too. So a lot of the rigging stuff that we'll be doing is coming from feedback, and then we'll continually update it too. Right. So for all our customers, whether you're buying the Power Prawns or the Slam Shadies or the Alabama Leprechauns, whatever they are, as we get newer and better rigging techniques and methods, we'll of course be quick to make a video about it and send it out to you so you know the latest and greatest.
Yep. That's it, guys. Go to fishstrong.com, get your Power Prawns today while you can, and stay tuned for Power Prawn USA coming to fishstrong.com. You will not be able to buy these in stores, at least not anytime soon, and that'll only be at our store. And we have the pickup too, just so you guys know. You are allowed to come pick it up right here in Winter Haven, Florida, where I'm filming this right now. And I have a lovely office and amazing staff, and it's not open to the public. You'll even see their members only. And but even if you're not a member, we will allow you to pick it up. But don't just try to storm in the door. You do need to set an appointment and pay for it in advance online, and then you can come pick it up, and that'll eliminate any and all shipping charges. So another way to save money if you're anywhere near Central Florida. So that's it. Otherwise, we'll talk to you in the next episode, and we'll have many more videos and tips on the Power Prawn, including some really cool underwater footage. I'm Joe, and that's
Luke.
Yeah, there you go. Whew, that was tough there. I'm Joe, and that's
Luke.
Oh,
that's a new format. I'm not aware of this.
This was part of the script, Luke. Stick to the script.
I missed that part.
Okay,
but yeah, we're just
never had a
excited
script here in this podcast.
Gonna be fun launching these lures, and I've been thrilled using them so far, and I can't wait to be able to provide this to members. I think they're going to be well received.
Yep. So I'm Joe, and that's
Luke.
We're signing off. Let us know if you like that new sign off. That's really nice.
My guess is no. Well,
yeah, you're like, no, you got an internet issue there, or you just deer in the headlights? I'm Joe, and that's.
I'm thinking about the next big old giant fish I'm going to catch when I throw one of these.
Oh my gosh, too funny, dude. All right, guys, we appreciate you. We love you, and we'll talk to you on the next episode. We out. Peace.